Let's get rolling here. We're going to open the October 3rd meeting of the East Longmeadow Planning Board, subject to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. I have to announce that we are taping this for LCAT, and we're also recording it on voice for the minutes. The first order of business is a continuation of a public hearing on site plan review for NG Advantage. Is anyone here from NG Advantage? No. Okay. We have received, as you know, in August, a 19-page report from both police chiefs of Longmeadow and East Longmeadow combined. I took the initiative at the suggestion of Denise to contact the zoning enforcement officer and ask his opinion of whether or not this was an allowed use in the industrial park. And I'd like to read his reply into the record. As confirming with the East Longmeadow zoning bylaws, this operation's use is not specifically listed under 3.01 prohibited uses, which also states that any use not listed herein or otherwise permitted in the district shall be deemed as prohibited. Additionally, all enterprises or industrial uses commonly regarded as hazardous or offensive are specifically prohibited in all districts. My point of view as the town's building commissioner for public safety and the town's zoning enforcement officer, this operation would be considered a high hazardous risk operation for the general public. In doing some research online, I have come across several other operations in other states which have much opposition to an operation like this. With the high number of general complaints we see on a daily basis, I can foresee this also becoming an issue for the residents. Due to the proposed steady volume of trucks for this operation traveling the town's roads alongside the general population, I would recommend the planning board conduct a complete and thorough study of the project's impacts on the community. But basically what he's saying is he would consider it a highly hazardous operation. Likewise, the report from both fire chiefs characterized this as a hazardous operation. Therefore, I am going to ask the board if we can, going to call for a motion to determine that the proposed use for NG Advantage site plan is commonly regarded as hazardous and thus is a prohibited use under section 3.01 of the East Longmeadow zoning bylaw. And my basis for asking that motion is the testimony of the two fire chiefs, the requirement under the emergency response guidelines, guide 115, that a leak requires an evacuation for half a mile downwind, and a leak with a fire requires an evacuation of 1 mile in all directions. And thirdly, the fact that NG Advantage has experienced at least 3 incidents involving similar trailers at its Milton, Vermont location that required evacuations. So do I have a motion to determine that it's hazardous?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this? This would declare it a prohibited use and therefore not allow us to approve the site plan.
I'm uncomfortable that they're not here to respond. So.
Well, what I'm asking for at this point is a determination by the board that this is hazardous and whether or not you agree with that. They knew that this was on for tonight.
They were at the meeting when this meeting was clearly stated to them, so, and they have not corresponded in any way.
Yeah. They were going to submit a revised site plan.
Yeah.
We've got nothing from them.
We've got nothing. And they've received the fire and police reports and have had conversations, I think, with the fire chief, with the planner.
Okay.
Just.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to declare it a prohibited use, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. In that case, is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the board on the issue of the site plan? Hearing none, do you have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
In this case, I'm going to depart from normal procedure and ask for a motion to deny approval of the site plan.
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of denying the site plan?
Discussion, please.
Yes.
So, was there, other than being here at the table and saying when the next date was there any other communication to the petitioner regarding when the meeting was going to be?
Was the agenda sent to them, for instance?
Yes.
Was the agenda sent to them?
No, I didn't send the agenda.
But it is posted on our
Yeah.
town website.
I would agree with you, Russ. The agenda should be sent to anyone that participates in a meeting.
I would agree with that, but in this case, it was not sent.
Yeah. So, I don't know, I mean, if they're not going to come, if they're gonna no longer pursue this, I don't see the reason why we can't delay this till our next meeting. So,
How does the board feel?
Send them the agenda.
just my opinion.
I feel that the agenda should have been sent. I know that there was a request for the agendas to be sent. And this is months in the making, and correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, but communication has been stagnant.
Yes.
So I would feel comfortable moving forward with the motion.
Anybody else?
My concern is if the agenda was not sent to them, did they know that, is it crystal clear that they were supposed to be here tonight? And from their side of the fence, do they know they're supposed to be here tonight?
They knew it was continued to tonight at 6 o'clock because they were in the room when the continuation was made.
They were in the room, but we didn't send them the agenda. That's the part that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Had we sent them the agenda, I would feel a little better about this.
At this point, we've closed the public hearing, so we cannot, at this point, take any more testimony from them. Okay? We have closed the public hearing, unless you want to rescind that vote.
Well, I'll make a motion to reconsider that vote.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Nope, I just answered my own question. We closed the public hearing. Okay.
When can they reapply, if they wanted to?
I'm not sure.
I think it's 2 years, right?
I do not know that.
I would have to check.
2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to look down the road to see if there's any potential holes that they could drive a truck through. And if they could come back and say, we were never given proper notice of the continuation, I then don't want that to have the town being embroiled in that. And if we were just to delay the vote for 2 weeks, reopen the public hearing, and send them the notice, the agenda, and they don't show up, I don't know what 2 weeks does to the process.
I agree with Russell. I think we should resend.
Okay, so who made the motion to deny? That was you, Deb. Do you want to withdraw that motion?
I would like to withdraw my motion of denying the closing of the public hearing.
Okay.
And
No,
I'll
denying the site plan. That was what the motion was. We already closed the public hearing.
Closing the site plan.
The site-
Correction.
denying the site
Thank you,
plan.
George.
Okay, so we have a motion to reconsider the closing of the public hearing. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of rescinding the vote to close the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we'll continue this to, what's our next meeting? It'll be October 17th? At, do you have anything else on the
We
agenda?
have a 6 o'clock public hearing for the home daycare.
Home daycare, so it's 6:15. And instruct our assistant to send a letter to NG Advantage informing them of that, and also informing them of the vote that we did take to determine that it's a prohibited use. Okay.
And do you want me to send the letter and the agenda?
Yes. And can I also note that I think all people coming in front of the board should always be sent the agenda?
And I guess I would ask that just one line be, if it's your intention to not appear before the planning board, please contact us, and please inform us. Just a little courtesy would be
Yeah.
nice, so.
And you run that letter by me or by
Yep.
Denise before it
Thank you.
goes out, but. Okay, what time is it? It's 10 after, we've got a few minutes yet. We have an A&R, no, we're not gonna work on that, it's Energy Advantage.
Yeah.
I would temporary banner.
Temporary banner for Lewis and Clark.
There you go.
Town of East Longmeadow sign permit application dated September 18th, 2017. Business name and address is Lewis and Clark Medical Supply, 436 North Main Street, East Longmeadow, Mass. Owner's name and address is Skip Matthews, 23 Fernwood Drive, Wilbraham, Mass. Property owner's address is Heritage Management LLC, 80 Hayden Avenue, Lexington, Mass. Contact person is Diane Carina. Phone numbers are listed here. Square footage, proposed sign is 60 square feet. Freestanding, yes. Height above the ground is 1 foot. Attached to the building is no. Projected, if any, it's a fence banner. Setback from property line is 600 feet. Distance from top of the sign, vertical wall is 5 feet. It's a temporary sign between 30 to 60 days. It is not illuminated. Number of proposed signs is 1. Total square footage is 60 square feet. Total square footage is 60 square feet. The application's been signed, dated, and the estimated cost is $450, and that's what it will look like.
So there's a fence in front of the
The
building,
guardrail
and they're gonna
fence.
hang it on the guardrail. Okay, it's temporary for 60 days?
Between 30 and 60 days.
Okay.
It's good to me. I'm glad that spot has
Yeah.
been filled so quickly.
And that's a good business to have there. You don't have to run down to Enfield anymore.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any further discussion? 60 days?
I think 60 days is good. Get your
Okay.
name out there.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's done.
Lucky names.
What's next? Lucky Nails.
Request for waiver site plan review, East Longmeadow Center Village LLP. Owner's address is 40 Island Pond Road, Springfield. Phone numbers are listed here. Name of proposed business is Lucky Nails and Spa. Owner of business is Tong Tu. Business owner's address is 81 Birch Ave, East Longmeadow Ave. Property address is 68 Center Square, East Longmeadow. Property district is business. Allowed use is yes. Proposed hours are 9:30 to 7:30. Number of employees, including owner, is 2. Date of last parking plan is attached. Summary of business is nails and waxing. The application's been signed and dated September 25th, 2017. That's it.
Do you know which storefront that is?
That was where Verizon Wireless was.
Okay, Verizon.
Okay.
Next to
Okay.
Starbucks.
Best location
So
in the
allowed
shopping
use?
center.
Yeah. Okay. So it's allowed use in the district. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, discussion.
So I obviously was not on the board when the center's project was completed. Were there some discussions about the type and quality of business that would be within the premises?
I was not on the board when it was approved either, but my impression is if it's allowed use in the district, then it's an allowed use in the district. I don't think there were any restrictions specifically on what types of business would be in there. I think the assumption was that the owner was charging enough money in terms of rent that he was going to be attracting higher-end businesses. But again, that's not really our purview. If it's an allowed use, it's an allowed use. And then again, nails can be high-end business too.
I think it's out of character for that property. A couple of spots in there are really kind of out of character for, I think, what we would want to see for the center of town, and specifically, I guess, what would be considered the, for lack of better words, premier retail space in town. I know we're not the owners, but we do deal with the character of the town. And I think that some of our decisions, we might want to protect the value of the property, even though it doesn't sound like maybe the owner wants to develop, or wants to protect the value. So I'm either going to vote no, or I'm going to abstain, one or the other, because I just think that the planning board needs to kind of look at the character of, there's a place for every type of business. Yeah, I guess is what I'm just trying to say, and then I'll stop talking.
Ma'am?
Please.
I would much rather see a thriving business go in our Center Square area than a vacant storefront. And the types of businesses that go in there are not for us to approve if it's within allowed use. So I'm glad that this spot is being filled. And we don't have a vacant storefront.
Yeah, I appreciate Russ's concerns. I also appreciate the limits that we have on our ability to make rulings. We have to go by the zoning bylaw, and if there are any covenants at all with a particular development, the enforcement of the covenants is up to the owner or the owners of that development, rather than us, unless it's actually in the zoning bylaw. So, any other discussion?
I like Russ's comment, however, unfortunately, I don't think we have any basis whatsoever to deny this application. I obviously would like to see a lot of other uses other than this one. So I agree with Deb, but I also agree with Russ. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to move forward with this.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? What is that, 4-0?
I abstain.
4-0. Okay. And, yeah, make sure that goes into the NG Advantage file. Okay, it's 6:15. We have a continuation of a preliminary subdivision for Red Rock Pond Estates. You want to get the plans? Got it. Sorry.
Of course I have it.
Of course I have it. You face at the end of the table. So this is dated 9/4. Okay.
My name is Don Frederick from Sherman and Frederick Land Surveying Engineering, and Al Joyce, the project applicant. Last time we met, we had some comments, and we have updated the plans since then. So I'm just going to go through our September 28th letter, which kind of summarizes the changes. The applicant has requested to change the name of the proposed road to Redstone Pond Drive and the name of the development to Redstone Pond Estates. There was some discussion or request to check into allowing an emergency access road and a water main loop from the end of Harwich Road over to the end of Redstone Drive. We did look at that. There's a large wetland area down and through here, and there's a great difference between the end of Harwich and Redstone Pond Drive, and we don't feel that this over 600-foot length, majority of it through a wetland, would be permittable under the current regulations. We attached a copy of the wetlands as shown in the Mass GIS photos and the Mass GIS to our cover letter.
Donna, do you have the cover letter here?
I think that's one of the plans, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is, yes. Yeah, there's
So
some
this-
couple
What
pictures.
is the grade differential from Harwich?
The grade at the end of the road is 210, drops down to 200, and it gets back up to about 230
Okay.
at the cul-de-sac.
Spring showing down there. Okay. And DPW, the former DPW superintendent indicated water main loop would not be required for the project.
That indicated that the...
He was of the opinion that it wasn't going to be necessary to loop the water main.
Okay, but you have,
We have included an easement and a possible connection if it does become
required,
okay,
by then,
it would be between where and where?
between the two cul-de-sacs of the
Between the
proposed
two
project.
cul-de-sacs.
Correct.
The Redstone has been revised to allow for more buildable area for the lots located at the end of Redstone Drive. That's this one?
Yes, we originally had it as a standard cul-de-sac, like a lollipop at the end of the, for the cul-de-sac, and we shifted it so it's kind of a right-hand lobe, so that would allow more buildable area for the lots.
And you're saying that you will have a homeowners association, and required to maintain the area within the cul-de-sac on Redstone Pond Drive. What about the area within the cul-de-sac on Redstone?
Is that one, were you proposing it for thinking of all pavement in there, or you think you're gonna have it?
right, I think that on the proposed new road, there is going to be a vegetated area in that cul-de-sac, and that's what I believe they wanted to have maintained.
Right, but you're also showing an area in the cul-de-sac at the end of Redstone.
Oh, that's all paved.
Okay, that's not the way it looks on the,
It does look like a greenery of
you
sorts.
got something in the middle of it.
Yeah, if it comes down to being a landscape, they would probably maintain both of them, because it's...
We would maintain both if that was the case.
Yes.
Even though I don't think there was meant to be any vegetated area.
Okay. Now, we also talked about requiring the road to be 24 feet wide. On your front page, you're still asking for a variance
Right.
of 22 feet wide.
We'll agree to the 24 feet.
Well, on the plan, it's asking for 22 still.
Can you make it on the definitive plan that we
Sure.
agree to?
I mean,
Yeah, on
24
the
feet?
definitive plan, well, we have to vote for a waiver anyway, and part of
Okay,
the waiver
right, so
we
if you
vote
don't-
for.
Okay.
Okay. You are putting the sidewalk in, so there's no waiver there. And you don't have the final topography on this one, that will have to be on the definitive.
Yes.
We do have some proposed grading on it, however, it's based on Mass GIS contours, but the definitive would have full grading plan profiles and so forth.
Okay. This being a public hearing, do we have any comments from the public on this one? Hearing none, I'll take it back to the board. Any questions or comments on this?
Oh, I think it looks like a great project. Once the plans have been revised with the 24-foot, I would like the input of both the fire and the police.
We'll need that for the definitive, definitely.
And I do see the wetland issue.
And we'll also get comments from DPW on,
DPW as well, absolutely.
absolutely,
Yes.
on the stormwater.
Yep. And do we, I realize we have dead-end roads all around, but being that it is a cul-de-sac, do we have to take in mind the turning radius for fire vehicles?
Yeah, we do, and the fire department has indicated that this radius is sufficient.
They have,
Yeah.
okay, that's great.
Yeah.
This one, I can see would be.
Yeah. I am concerned somewhat on the stormwater management, because there's no calculations, we really don't know where that water's gonna end up going, and because you haven't really shown the swale or whatever it is you're gonna put in there. So on the definitive, we'll have to see an acceptable stormwater management plan.
There'll be wetland filings and a full drainage report done for this, so that would certainly be included in the finish.
Again, I just want to make it absolutely clear that we are not going to allow drainage onto the houses on Harwich Road, okay?
Understand.
Because right now, the slopes look that way, and we have to be very, very concerned about that. Yeah. Likewise, over here, there's any, I'm not sure how they're going to handle the stormwater
Neither
from
am I,
this.
yeah.
Because this is at 140, what's the grade here?
147 is there.
This is-
No.
There's a profile on the next sheet if that would help you with.
This is for Redstone, not for
Yeah,
Redstone.
they're both on there.
They're both on?
I'm sorry, it's on
I
the
see
fourth-
Redstone
the fourth sheet.
Pond.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay. So, we're at 227 at there, and it comes down to bottoms out 226 halfway down Redstone. So then, where the stormwater will go from there would be a question.
Actually, it slopes off towards the, away from the houses in here, the wetlands are back here, so we're anticipating likely something in the backs of the houses.
Okay, but you're still gonna have the stormwater from the road and probably from the driveways.
Yes.
So that's gonna have to be dealt with.
Retention basins.
Okay, we have two waivers on this that are being asked for. One is for the right-of-way to be 50 feet rather than 60, which is the standard. Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments on that? I think the 50-foot right-of-way is sufficient. It
I think
gives you-
for this project,
Yeah.
it is sufficient.
Okay. And the other one is, they're asking for 22 feet paved width. My recommendation is 24. And that would also be a waiver from the 30-foot standard, which again, for a small subdivision like this, will act as traffic calming. Luckily, we don't have to worry about any cut-throughs here. So do I have a motion to waive the 60-foot right-of-way to a 50-foot right-of-way?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to waive the 30-foot paved width down to 24 feet paved width?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that one? Fire department is happy with 24, and makes it a legal road. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So there are some loose ends yet that will have to be covered in the definitive, but I think we've got something that we can work with here. You feel that? Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing on the preliminary subdivision?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision with the waivers that we passed?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? I think we're in better shape than we were when we started. There's a lot of work to be done, but obviously, they need to know it's conceptually possible before they're going to put the money in to do the work. So,
Stepping stones.
yeah, we expect that those issues will be covered in the definitive. Now, a motion to approve, and do we have a motion already? No. Do I have a motion to approve the preliminary?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so you
Thank
got
you.
your preliminary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Donna, this will have to be signed. I'll come in tomorrow and
Thank you.
we can sign the, we don't all have to sign this, do we?
No, I think you should
Okay.
sit me to sign it, please, yeah.
Good. It's 6:30. We have a continuation of the public hearing on the mixed-use overlay district, and everyone... Sure. And everyone should have gotten a copy in email of the letter from Fitzgerald
You want this letter read?
Yeah, that would be great. Sure, if we can read that. So we're opening the continuation of the hearing.
This is a letter from Attorney Frank Fitzgerald to the Town of East Longmeadow Planning Board. Dear Mr. Kingston, we send this letter along in response to suggestions and questions raised at the recent Planning Board hearing on our zoning request in anticipation of further discussion at the continues hearing on October 3rd. We truly appreciate the attentiveness of the board members on this matter and their constructive comments and suggestions. We believe that this dialogue will lead to a sound platform for presentation to the town council and ultimately result in beneficial town project for the town. The issues suggested at the hearing are as follows. Density. We are mindful of the concerns of the board in this regard, and we are appreciative of the fact that the board acknowledges that in order for this project to be successful, it must have some scope. With this in mind, we would suggest that the density housing per acre required be a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 16. Number 2, height. The height requirements are 4 stories, 50 feet for building structures located up to 400 feet from Chestnut Street, and 4 stories, 60 feet for building structures located beyond 400 feet. The height merely accommodates a pitched roof on the residential buildings within the method of measurement that the town uses. Number 3, size of retail. The live work play concept of this project does not require substantial units with significant square footage, as retail components are primarily complementary to the residential component. We therefore suggest that the square footage be restricted as follows. Uses less than 10,000 square feet may occur without restriction. One use within the project with up to 25,000 square feet, or no more than 2 uses up to 15,000 square feet each. Period. Number 3, overlay district. We believe that the use of an overlay district is applicable here, as it provides specific guidelines enabling and justifying the developer's extensive effort to prepare and plan for a project with this scope. The town retains site plan approval and special permit authority for several uses. The overlay district retains the benefit of existing zoning for the property owners, and more importantly, is less likely to be subject of a zoning appeal, which could substantially delay the project. We understand the board's concern with respect to the overlay district being used in other parts of the town, and in that regard, we will be willing to entertain an increase in the required acreage to 40 acres and other limitations such as proximity to the center of town, possibly 1.25 miles, and the rail trail, in order to narrow the possible sites in town qualifying for this overlay district. We look forward to seeing you on October 3rd. Sincerely, Frank Fitzgerald.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, it sounds like we're getting close.
I received a call, or an email from Larry Smith from
Yes.
planning, and we sent him the word version of this, and I called him a couple of times today, but we just missed each other.
Right.
So I was hoping, I didn't know whether he was going to be here tonight. I was hoping he could sit
He's
down.
not going to be here tonight. He will be here at our next meeting, hopefully. But he is now our consulting planner, if you will. And the suggestion was that if the board is in agreement with the general guidelines that we've laid out here, that he would work with you or meet with you to try to get a final bylaw in the proper format and the proper numbering. Some of this, what we normally have in our zoning bylaws for these, you've, I'm sure, looked at this many times, but what we have is a definition of district.
Yeah.
Okay, for each district. And then we have in section 5, special use regulations.
Yeah.
And in section 3, additional use, dimensional and density regulations. And in fact, a lot of this would go into the additional use for this district, the 3.3 area. That things like the height of, not sorry, the height of the buildings, but the number of stories, the square footage of retail, and those sorts of things would be in that section 3.3. And we'd probably have a separate section in section 5 for this district, just as we do for industrial garden, elderly residential, and so on. So that, that way we'll have something that is consistent with the rest of the bylaw and can go forward. I think the two issues, one issue that I'm still a little hung up on is overlay versus zone. My discussions with town council, with town manager, and with Mr. Smith would give us to believe that this being such a large parcel, it being on the edge of the industrial garden park, and also next to another parcel that was separately zoned, the planned unit residential, that this would not be considered spot zoning at all, and therefore would not have it be really subject to challenge under that. And again, I feel that it's a great use for this particular piece of property. I'm not sure I would like to see it elsewhere in town, and that's why I would still be leaning towards the zone. If the issue is that the owners would like to retain the ability to use it as industrial garden park if the project doesn't fly for some reason after we do this, and then we could add those uses in as alternatives to the mixed use.
Matt?
Yeah, please do.
I think we're having a discussion.
Please do.
I was looking to see if my property was here. Again, our sensitivity is for the existing owner.
Yeah.
That, they've been good property owners in town for a long time.
Sure.
Want to remain good property owners in town for a long time.
Sure.
And, we just really want to sweep their existing use out from under them. So
Right.
if there was some language in there that we could have that would protect their existing use right, that I think that'd be ideal. Again, I'm always very sensitive, as a long-term owner, I'm always very sensitive to,
Sure.
Sweeping somebody's existing property right with the, 550,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
Kind of sweeping out from under them. Recognizing we are 100% in on this, but again, we're always, we're always mindful of of
Personally,
that.
I would not object to having language in there that retained the current use within the new zone, okay? So that
Okay.
the current use could be retained within the zone. And, clearly, if you go in there with a mixed use, you're not gonna have
Right.
industry there as well.
Right.
So it's an alternative either or.
And I'd be comfortable with language of that nature, that you're kind of declare you're going this way, you're going that way,
And I leave it to you to craft the language,
Very well.
but personally, just speaking for myself, I would be comfortable with that. Yeah. Other bo-
I agree. I've been wrestling with the overlay versus the zone change as well, for the protection for the other areas and our other residents, and combining of parcels and things of that nature, and being able to come up with that acreage. Just talking about that right now, not getting into other
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
I would be comfortable if the wording was there and special permit allowed to entertain that avenue.
Okay.
Russ, what are your thoughts?
I'm getting a little confused, to be perfectly frank on it. You just mentioned special permit, you mentioned zone change.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Okay, the question that we're discussing right now is it going to be an overlay zone, or is it going to be a new zone? Okay? In other words, or is it going to retain?
We're gonna create a new zone and then do a zone change. Would that be the process?
No, we're going to create, do we create a new zone as a standalone zone?
Yeah.
Or do we create an overlay district that overlays the industrial garden park? Okay, that's the question. And my inclination is to make this a new zone, just like we have the planned unit residential and the planned adult residential.
But it can only be on the lot in question.
Right, to zone that lot in question as a new zone. And because of the size of the lot and its location, it's not an island
Yeah.
in, another
Yeah.
zone.
So it wouldn't be spot
It
zoning.
wouldn't be
I get
spot
that, yeah.
zoning. That's the impression I keep getting.
And we don't have any other lots in town of a similar size?
Not in this zone, okay? We have lots in town of larger size,
Right.
okay? But they're in residential zones.
Well, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but it's still not processing here. So we would create a brand-new zone
Right.
that would go into the zoning ordinance as this zone.
Yes.
And it would apply to only this lot in question.
Right.
How many acres?
40.
Just the 40 acres.
Right. But we have other lots in town that are 40 acres or more.
Right.
So this, we would foreclose
No.
the
They could come to you and ask you for.
for zone change.
For the same zone.
Anybody at
But
any
you
time.
can,
Yeah, right.
but you can make, they would have to, make their own planning rationale apply.
I'm with you.
If we're an overlay district,
Okay, I'm with you.
if we're an overlay district and they qualified, they would be qualified.
And again,
Which is a lot of our fear of
Yeah.
the repercussions of
And
the
even,
overlay district in the future.
Yeah, right.
Maybe 20, 30, 40 years down the road.
Okay.
And to be very fair, we're,
Excuse me.
again, transparent to a fault. Even when I do my little, like, snap a line from the center of town, there's a big property right in between, that falls in it. So, we understand, and I appreciate that the board understands my concern for for our current,
Right.
for our partner, or our current property
Right.
owner, to kind of sweep their existing use out from underneath it.
Okay.
I'm very sensitive.
But I mean, if you can put language in there that protects the existing use, okay, until the new use comes in,
Great.
then I would be comfortable with that.
And there would be site plan approval
Yes.
with the special permit for those several uses we've discussed, restaurants. Yeah.
Right.
The ones that are special permits everywhere in town.
Right.
Right. Denise, do you have any comments? or-
I'm on board with that.
Well, after meeting, you know that my concern has been the spot zoning issue. I
Yeah.
was concerned, but after talking to Larry Smith, I am more comfortable with that, so.
Okay. Other comments or questions from the board? I mean, what I'm hoping is after tonight, they can go back and work with Mr. Smith and come to us with something that looks like something that would pop into the bylaw.
Mhm.
Okay? So, any other areas of concern that you have here?
I do have other areas, but not, I would, very interested, very excited to see what would be brought before us. And obviously, we know that this is a stepping stone uphill, and we'll address each thing as they come in. Not something we can do overnight, but one of them is the height restrictions. We're pretty rigid with our height restrictions, and I understand, if I'm reading this properly, you're saying the height restrictions are merely pitches of roofs, attic space,
Correct.
if you will. Well, never before to my knowledge, have we dismissed the pitch of a roof and only taking it to the living space. To my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it's average grade to the highest point.
Correct.
Yes.
That's why I said the way that you measure height
Okay,
makes it be 60.
okay. So you're not looking for, okay,
And we can write 4 stories
yes.
into the dimensional requirements, if necessary.
Right, like, so when we talk
For
about
this zone.
the first 400 feet from Chestnut, that we say that can be 50, it's still a 4-story building. It's actually a tall first floor for the retail, and then 3 more stories, but because it's a mixed-use building, it has more of a flat roof, so you
Right.
don't have that
Right.
residential pitch. So, we typically like.
You can cheat the average grade.
Oh, no,
We know this, yeah.
but even here, you don't, it's flat, so,
Right, right,
it's
yeah.
flat, you can't cheat.
And it's not cheating, it's
Right,
actual factual, it's the average grade.
It's not
A.
cheating, it's following the rules.
Yep.
As they're written. But then in the back, the beyond 400 feet, again, they're just straight residential buildings that you typically like to put a pitched roof on because it's New England and snow.
It's aesthetically pleasing.
It's
and
aesthetically pleasing, but,
For sure.
but when you measure it per the rules, it goes to 60. So you want to, but that's why, but I'm perfectly happy with 4 stories, and how we're going to define stories.
Are we all satisfied with 4 stories?
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I do not have a problem with 4
All right,
stories
good.
personally.
Because that's really the question.
Yeah.
I would like to see what comes next.
Other concerns that we want to highlight at this point? I think the density is a great step forward. And obviously, you're going to have to build a certain number of apartments in order to be able to make it go. And if you build too many, you're not going to be able to rent them, so, one of the things that struck me is, I was reading today, in fact, that Enfield is bidding for Amazon.
Okay.
Everybody's bidding.
So is everybody else.
Everybody's bidding for Amazon.
So is Worcester. You didn't respond to your
Worcester was
No,
down.
I didn't hear that one.
The taxes in Enfield, no one's going, they're not going there.
No, you may not know this, George, but East Longmeadow is going to be responding too.
But seriously, something like that, if we're to go in.
I got some land out back.
Boston and Worcester, and we have East-West Rail, this being the best place to live in the valley now, officially.
Absolutely.
Then, there's gonna be a lot of pressure on the town, and we wanna make sure that we just don't suddenly become Framingham overnight. That's really the concern that we have. Not that Framingham's not a great place, it is, but it's different from here.
I think it's a good idea. We've been working with Denise and Robin, and this will be helpful for all of us to help conform what we're doing to the town bylaw.
Right.
It'll be, and that's where we want to get to.
This being a public hearing, I'll open it up to the public. If there are any comments, Mr. Page?
Ralph Page. Just a couple of comments. I know you reduced to 16 units per acre. Again, that's per acre of the total lot, which here would be 40 acres.
Correct.
So you'd be looking 640 units would be a maximum that
Correct.
you're asking for. I don't know if this has any wetlands in it, but with the wetlands, if there is, those would be excluded from this calculation, correct?
No.
Or at least when it's written into the bylaw?
That's not the intention right now.
Well, I'm just thinking when we're writing a bylaw, that's something that we have to look at for a future development that may go in, and they're gonna follow the same guidelines. If, let's say on Denslow Road, you have the property right next to the brook, the storage units, they have 40 acres, 10 of it's wetlands. It's just something I think the board should think about. Obviously, if there's no wetlands here, it doesn't make a difference with that type of wording in it.
It sounds like what you're saying is usable versus non-usable.
Exactly.
And I agree with you, Mr. Page. That would be more of a concern if we stayed with the overlay concept, okay? If we go with the zoning, putting this zone on this piece of property, then that would be a consideration if someone wanted to change a different piece of property to this zone, okay? But that would be something that would be, again, a zone change would have to go before us and then before the council. So it's a much higher bar than if it were an overlay district.
I agree with you completely, but the bar was still the same, the zone is still the same, the criteria is still the same as far as that goes.
Well,
But with that
yeah.
being said, the only other comment I had was the 4 stories. I have no problems with 4 stories, 4 normal stories. What is a typical height? You just said a retail shop is usually a much taller, and then you put 3 residentials on top. I think that's the reason the bylaw now has a square or a foot height requirement. Because if you did stories at 14 feet and 4 of them, the building's gonna be a lot taller.
Correct.
Or if you did a 10-foot residential, it changes the height. So I think that's just something, 4 stories is just extremely vague.
The proposal is both.
The height restriction overall will be in the bylaw, okay? There'll be the 50 and 60, the way it is now in the IGP.
And then a maximum of 4 stories with that.
Within that height restriction,
Perfect.
okay? So, yeah, that definitely would be there. We're not gonna allow 20-foot ceilings and, you know,
That's
something have maybe
exactly. Good
80-foot building. No, that's not the intention. It would be a combination of the two, so that we, and again, it's what makes sense in terms of being able to make this a viable project. And I like the idea of the size of retail restriction. You know, 10,000 is a reasonable size, small store. It's not small, but it's a reasonable size. And the 25,000 or to 15,000, I think that would work well. Any other comments from the floor? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board. If we're comfortable with the overall approach here, I'd say let's give it to, back to the applicants, to work with Mr. Smith to come up with something that is ready to get dropped into the bylaw, and then we can vote on that. And now, how long do you think it's going to take to do that?
Mary and
Okay.
Do you want it in a month? Or?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say next meeting, but if you want to
Do
say.
you think you can get that done in 2 weeks?
It's literally 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know what,
Yeah.
let me check, I haven't talked to Larry yet, let me make
I
sure.
was gonna say,
Denise-
I don't know how much his availability is, and Robin and I have been at the meetings in the past, so I would like to be there as well.
Yeah.
All right, you want to do a month, that's fine.
Yeah, it'll be the.
Why don't we do that?
It will be the
Yeah.
first Tuesday in November, which will be the 7th, I believe. Something like that. Let me call up my calendar here.
Is that a state election? No.
7th.
No, it's a good
7th.
question. Do we have any elections on? Do we have any elections that day? Because it is election day.
No, I don't think so. I think it's
Nothing,
an off
right?
year for the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing for the
No,
state,
Governor, no, we would see
Yeah.
signs by now.
and there's nothing local.
Well, there's no signs up that we're the
Yeah.
best town in
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
So let's, and we don't have anything scheduled yet for that. So let's do it at 6 o'clock on November 7th. It's a continuation. I have a motion to continue to 6 o'clock on November 7th.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So we would try to get the draft to you ahead of that, maybe a week ahead of that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
As soon as you can.
You know, when you get it done, send it to us so that we can time to read through it
Coordinate with Larry.
and
Okay, good.
make any suggestions for final adjustments so that hopefully it'll be votable at that meeting.
That'd be great.
We can move
That'd
forward.
be great.
Okay.
Thanks
great.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just get your name, please?
John.
Okay.
Thank you, I knew it was something like that.
We have a continuation of a public hearing on a special permit of AMG Retail at 227 Shaker Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
Okay.
Anything new for us?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm happy to report
Okay.
that after much consideration, my client is willing to reduce the hours of operation down to the suggested hours, I think, of 1 AM and reopen again at 5 AM, with the board's approval, obviously.
It's an improvement.
Yeah, I think it was the chair who put that hours out there
As a suggestion.
as a suggestion. So I don't think it was, certainly wasn't
Well,
it wasn't a unanimous approval.
This is their
or recommendation.
This is their request.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'd ask the board to, individually, Lou, you have comments?
I think that those hours are fine. You know, I don't have, I wouldn't add anything to it. I mean, it's not 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm opposed to that.
Okay, you think it's too broad?
I do. So, obviously, I'm new, and since I've been on, we've heard an awful lot about hours of operation for retail,
Mhm.
and this is retail. I think that up until about 2 months ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, the longest we had someone open was midnight of a similar type of establishment. So I think we ought to try to come to some uniformity with respect to that. So that would be So I would not go beyond those numbers, but that's just me.
Deb?
I am not opposed to the hours of operation, but I would like to speak about other things after we discuss the hours.
Okay. I think it's an improvement, certainly, and it's a step in the right direction. Obviously, there are two things that will happen here. One is your client will open up and decide whether or not they're making money between midnight and 1 o'clock. And, you know, that's their envelope, and they're going to have to figure out when they're operating. Likewise, you're going to have to, I don't know if they've gotten their liquor license yet. Obviously, that's the town council is going to have to determine the hours for that, which may or may not coincide with this. Okay. And if subsequent to opening up, it appears that there is a nuisance going on, okay, we can certainly revisit the permit at that point, because we have the right, if something isn't working, to revisit it. So if for some reason, you know, things don't work out, and the noise is too high, or there's too much disturbance there, or the police are getting too much action, we can reopen it and rediscuss it at that point.
Understandable.
Okay.
I feel this is a big improvement. I understand the, I don't know what the right word is, I call it hardship, but I understand, you know, where the applicant's coming from. He thought he was buying one thing and is now looking at something a little bit different. I appreciate the applicant being flexible. I hate to do this, but is there a way we can continue this for 2 weeks just to kind of digest this a little bit?
I would love to see that happen. I would love to see that continued. I have some questions
And I hate to do this to
of
the
the
applicant.
amendments.
They're dying to
I
get
really
open.
do.
They're dying to get
Okay.
open.
So is Longmeadow, trying to get it open.
Yeah.
We are as a town.
I mean, this has been sitting for
We
quite
know.
a while.
Oh, yeah, we've been driving by it every
Yeah.
day ourselves.
And they're
When
the
was your
one,
purchase and sale?
probably April.
Have you
Wow.
closed on it already?
Yeah, yeah, it's just been sitting there.
Do you have a co-brand yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, so you
But I
got,
have a couple, but they haven't made it, let me say this, they haven't made a decision yet.
so if they open now, they'll be operating it on their own, under their own name?
I don't know how quickly they can get the co-brand up there,
Okay.
that quickly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they can do it rather quickly.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I really appreciate your.
One of the things they asked me is if they would, that we could get an approval tonight.
If you
Yes.
came forth with that.
Yeah.
If we went to midnight, you might be able to get that.
No, I had a struggle, because there's layers here.
We're struggling too.
Yeah.
So if we continue it, I would ask the planning staff to at least give us a report that shows the opening and closing hours of each convenience store / gas station in town. And I'm going back to my comments when the previous petitioner came in, and they made a big deal about the competition. And we went through that entire scenario about being able to cover every shift from all the major employers. And the minute you open the door and go beyond for one, you know they're gonna keep coming.
Of course.
And we just kept hearing from the residents, they did not want those type of hours. And yes, I appreciate that you've come in a certain direction, I do appreciate that. And, my issue about uniformity, I think, should be considered, so. But we're kind of flying blind because we don't know the operating hours of every single one. I can take a guess,
And I don't think they're being,
but
well, I'll leave it at followed.
they're what?
I'm not sure everything's being followed properly, which is another issue
Yeah.
that's gonna have to be dealt with.
Yeah, like I know the mobile in the center of town is, I think, 10 o'clock.
I understand that, but that's not my client's concern. They had an application that they put in based on 24/7. That's what they bought the property based
You were
on.
in a different district.
Yes.
I understand that,
And that they've,
And we clearly recognize.
this is
the-
a huge impact on their.
Sure.
Sure.
I would like to go on record saying I'm not quite sure that you even need to be here. And I am not a lawyer, we would have to consult, but with transferring of a special permit, I would like to read this in. When a special permit involving the construction of building has not been implemented by supplemental construction, said permit shall not pass to future owners of the property without a public hearing or approval of the SPGA. Construction was completed. So I'm taking issue in understanding why the special permit was not transferred.
Well, the special permit would certainly have to be amended to put, at a minimum, it would have to be amended to put the new name on it.
But amended would be change of use, correct?
No,
No.
no.
That's what I came in on, is an amendment of the change in name.
Yes, any change to a special permit is an amendment.
But Larry Smith did say that the special use permit, the use of the property goes with the land and not with the owner.
Okay.
I think that's where, is that what you're kind of?
We had that discussion.
Yes.
I'm still not
Did we grant the
Comfortable.
special permit to the owner or to the land?
to the owner. We granted the special, you granted a permit to an entity,
Mhm.
okay? Someone has to hold that special permit.
Correct.
Okay. Now, the special permit itself says this is granted to so-and-so. And now we need to amend it to show that it's being held by someone else.
Mhm.
That's why we're here.
Re-granted to another recipient.
Yeah.
But according to Larry, the use goes with the land,
Yeah.
Mhm.
not with the owner.
So,
So special permit to the owner, usage to the land.
right. So, I would like to personally, I would like to reach closure on this tonight.
So would I.
We dragged it out
Yeah.
far too long.
They need to open their doors and get some money in there.
I'll open up to the floor, first of all. It is a public hearing. If anyone wishes to add anything at this point, please, your name and address.
Mary Ellen Fish, 259 Chestnut Street. You spoke so quietly, I couldn't understand what the hours they were asking for.
They're asking for 5 a.m. to 1 a.m.
To be closed.
To be open.
To be open from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Confused now.
Closed from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah,
Okay.
put it through.
That's kind of a long time.
Be closed.
I do think, too, you gotta make a decision and get the place going.
But one of the nice things that would allow is they wouldn't have, trucks, vehicles going in, reverse noise, horns, things like that at 3 a.m. while we're all sleeping.
So, any other comments from the floor? Mr. Page?
Ralph Page, 306 Prospect Street. As you're well aware, this development is in the industrial district. If you go down Shaker Road, you'll see that there's other retail operations that were granted 24 hours, including 3 buildings down Midnight Oil. They came in, we granted them a 24-hour operation. Directly behind an industrial garden park is the industrial facilities. I think what the applicant is now asking for is basically to be closed from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. is a nice intermediate. And it would be my suggestion that the board would take it and then see if there's any problems. Thank you.
Anything else from, please?
My name's Hayden Fife, I live at 255 Chestnut Street. And I would agree with what he said. I mean, they're trying to bend over backwards to bring a nice facility to the town of East Longmeadow. And the hours of operation only benefits the residents mainly. I would agree with the 5 to 1. He's not asking for 20, he would like 24 hours, but.
He'd still do it if you
want. I mean, resolution
I think it's
today would
wonderful.
be benefit everyone.
Thank you. Any other comments from the floor? Hearing none, I take it back to the board. We've got comments that some people would like more time to think about this. We've had comments that we really need to reach some resolution on this, and that there's not a whole lot more information that's going to help us make the decision to keep the hearing open. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this point.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? We close the public hearing. We cannot take any more testimony, any more data related to this.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. And I'd like to make a motion.
Well, we have a motion on the floor.
We haven't approved closing.
We have a motion to close on the floor.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay. To close the hearing.
Close the hearing.
I thought we had approved that. Okay. I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, we need to discuss and vote on whether or not, on the special permit, okay? And I would suggest that what we do is vote to amend the special permit to include hours of operation from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. and to change the name to the name of the new owner.
I would second that.
Well, I can't move it. That's what I would
like-
suggest that we
yes,
vote on.
I would like it to make a motion
that
to
effect.
approve to that effect.
Okay.
Even easier.
Did you have a motion you wanted to make for us?
I did.
Okay, well,
I did.
we can entertain that.
Well, I was hoping to almost kind of read the board and read the comments here on everybody. I was hoping to actually do my motion first to see where it went.
Well, we can table this motion,
Okay.
and,
So then I would like to make a motion
okay,
that the hours of operation be 5 a.m. to midnight.
so that's a different motion.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
So moved.
I have a second on
I'll
that.
second that.
Further discussion?
I kind of feel that our whole discussion is really over an hour.
Yeah, I think the applicant...
And I know that wasn't what your client asked you for, but, and I really appreciate the flexibility that you've shown tonight, and I know it's been difficult, I know this is not easy, but at the end of the day, I think we're really talking about an hour here, for the way I'm
We
reading
can
it.
vote on this one. We can vote on
and
this,
you know,
because we already have a motion tabled.
so can we continue to discuss? Can we-
Sure.
So I mean, I obviously was on the wrong side, or I just abstained on the previous vote about a type of business in town, and I referenced the character of the town. And I think the character of the town means a lot to a lot of people. And my comment about you're kind of opening the door for the next one to come in, and the next one to come in, and the next one to come in, when we heard loud and clear from a lot of residents about the 24-hour, and I realized that he's made some concessions, but I don't feel comfortable going beyond midnight. And the issue about, Mr. Sabella, or Attorney Sabella put in about the safety, I just want to mention that. I mean, we did hear from the police chief that the longer the facility would be open, the bars let out, more likely there to be issues, potentially, he said potentially. And so we might want to take that in consideration on the character of the length of hours that we have as well. So that's just my point of view. So.
Okay. Any further discussion of Russ's motion? Hearing none? All those in favor of the alternate motion of having them close at midnight, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And one abstention?
No, he said.
Nay, he said that.
Nay, okay, so
Oh, yeah, it's
that
high
one,
pitch.
that one fails. We now have a motion on the table, and it's been seconded. Has it been seconded?
Yes, it was seconded, and we tabled it.
Was seconded to amend to the hours of 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. and change the name to the name of the new owner. Any further discussion on that? Hearing
Let me
none.
make sure I understand what our vote is now.
Our vote is to amend the
So
special...
now I'm going nay.
To amend the special permit to the hours of 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. and to change the name to the name of the new owner. That's the motion that's being voted on now. All those in favor?
Discussion, because
Please, yeah.
it's a new motion. So I will vote for these new hours, because obviously my motion was denied, and I put it out there because I felt it was in the best interest of the town.
That's good.
And I do want to thank the owner for coming back with additional hours, these new changes. I, like many people here, are really interested in seeing this open and getting moving. It's been a while. It certainly is not an eyesore, but it's certainly something I think that the town has been waiting for.
Yeah.
So, but
The guy who cleans my chimney came in today and asked me what was going on with the gas station.
Oh, everybody has it.
I hear it all day long.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
4-1. Special permit will issue as amended.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your patience.
thank you.
Can't leave you out.
Okay.
Take care, have a good night.
The only other thing on the agenda tonight is review of the minutes. I did review the minutes of June 20th, and I believe they've been done to my corrections. Anyone?
I did review
Other
your
corrections on June 20th?
So I would ask that we not approve the minutes
Of June 20th?
of any minutes that we have in front of us. So I went to the Secretary of State's website and looked at the public records law, and there are questions and answers the Secretary of State puts out. And it's what records of public meetings must be kept. And they talk about what should be in the minutes of the meetings. And I would like to hand this out to the members of the board and the town manager, and perhaps suggest that we
Thank you.
have them redone with this format in mind. I think it would make it easier.
Donna, would you like?
It appears that the current minutes are almost a transcript, and it is difficult to read and difficult to follow. And I think that if they were put in this format, it would be easier for the public, easier for us. And I would just suggest that we do that.
And I agree with your suggestion going forward, and I agree that the July 18th minutes are not ready for prime time yet, but we have worked through the June 20th ones, and we do have an obligation to get minutes done in a reasonable period of time. One of the things that we need to remember is that while the minutes may not seem all that important at the time, if anything is appealed or in any other way ends up in court, the first thing that the court does is ask for the minutes. And if it ain't in the minutes, you have to demonstrate that it happened. And I'm not saying we need a transcript, okay? I am saying we need to have approved minutes, and they need to be good minutes. And I know that Denise and Donna are working on that as we speak.
May I, Chair? Do we keep hard copies of the vocal recordings?
Yes,
Okay.
I have them on the computer.
So
I downloaded
if discussions were summarized for a timely fashion and for the ease of the public to read, that's accessible as is LCAT?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
So if there's any question about who said what to whom, it's on tape, okay? But I think Russ is correct that the minutes, the written minutes, don't have to have a verbatim transcript. And it would make it a lot easier for the board to review the minutes if we had less verbiage to go through. But that's something that I want to leave to the town manager and our support staff to work out how that should be done, particularly since we may be going through the transition here.
And that would be across other boards as well,
Yeah.
so.
But I would suggest that since we've put the time in, at least some of us has put the time in on the June 20th minutes, and they appear to be correct, that we vote on June 20th and leave July 18th for the time being. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 20th?
So moved.
Do I have a second? By anybody?
Ty,
I'll second.
because I don't think you guys were here, were they?
I was here, but
You were on June 20th?
I was
Wow,
not
time
going to
flies.
second the motion.
I'm sorry, I thought you weren't even here, I
That's okay.
apologize.
That's okay. Any further discussion?
Could I just reiterate what Mr. Denver is saying, and it is something that Donna and I have had discussions already, and out of fairness to where we are on minutes, it's certainly across the board. It's not just the planning board, it's not just conservation, that I'm working on that whole concept that you're talking about. But to change midstream while the minutes are already just about done or being proofed and being worked on, Donna and I had a discussion about the July, the next set of minutes. Yesterday? I think it was yesterday. So we're working on that to have to change those at this point, but going forward, certainly, I agree.
And that's where I'm at, by the way.
I'm sorry?
I second it, but I feel the same way, that let's get these done, but moving forward, let's re-examine where we're going with these minutes.
Great. Have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
Is that 4-1?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is good, though.
Any other business before the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Let's blow this.